Have you ever been stuck on a problem for hours, given up, gone for a walk just to clear your head, and had the answer show up out of nowhere halfway through? That is not just in your head. Scientists just measured it, and the effect is bigger than almost anyone expected. For most of human history, walking was not exercise. It was just how you got anywhere. But somewhere along the way, people noticed something strange about it. Their best ideas kept showing up while they were on the move, not while they were sitting at a desk. Aristotle ran an entire school built around this idea. His students at the Lyceum in Athens were called the Peripatetics, a word that literally means the ones who walk around, because Aristotle taught philosophy while pacing through the school's covered walkways instead of standing still. Charles Darwin built a gravel loop behind his house that he called the Sandwalk, and he walked it every single day, sometimes multiple times, while working through the ideas that eventually became the theory of evolution. Beethoven composed some of his most famous symphonies on long afternoon walks through the countryside outside Vienna, carrying a pencil and notebook so he could scribble down melodies the moment they came to him. Charles Dickens regularly walked 20 miles through London at night when he was stuck on a plot, wandering through the darkest parts of the city until a scene finally clicked into place. Virginia Woolf called her walks through London streaming and used them to work out the stream of consciousness style that would define her novels. Even Nikola Tesla claimed some of his biggest inventions arrived almost fully formed in his mind during long walks, before he had built a single prototype. By the 20th century, the tech industry had rediscovered the same trick. Steve Jobs was famous for holding entire business meetings while walking instead of sitting in a conference room, and other Silicon Valley executives still do the same thing today. So the question is not really whether smart, creative people have believed in walking for centuries. They clearly have. The question is whether the effect is actually real or just a story creative people like to tell about themselves. Have you ever noticed which activities make your mind wander in a useful way versus which ones just make it go blank? That distinction turns out to matter a lot more than most people realize. Walking already had a long resume before anyone tested it for creativity. It is linked to a lower risk of dying early, a healthier heart, and better mood, all fairly well established in prior research. It is also linked to sharper memory and better executive function, the mental skill set that helps you plan, focus, and switch between tasks without losing track of what you were doing. None of that proves walking makes you more creative. Being good for your heart and being good for your imagination are not automatically the same thing, even if they sound like they should be. Earlier research had already found that physical activity in general, things like cycling, dancing, and running, seems to boost creative thinking, but almost none of it isolated walking specifically from all that other exercise. And that distinction matters because walking is something almost anyone can do. You do not need a bike, a dance studio, or the fitness to go for a run. There is also a second, less obvious question buried in all of this. Creativity is not really one single skill. Scientists studying it usually split it into two very different abilities. The first is divergent thinking, the skill of generating a big pile of new, original ideas. Picture a brainstorming session where the goal is quantity and novelty, not being right. A classic way to test it, the one used across almost every study in this field, is to ask someone to list as many unusual uses as they can think of for an everyday object, like a brick or a paperclip. The second skill is convergent thinking, the ability to take a pile of options and narrow them down to the single best, correct answer. Think of solving a tricky riddle or a word puzzle that only has one right solution. Which one do you think benefits more from a walk? Coming up with a flood of wild new ideas, or calmly picking the single best one out of a crowded field? Most people assume the two go together. If walking makes your mind more creative, surely it helps with both generating ideas and choosing the best one right. Earlier reviews on physical activity and creativity mostly focused only on that first skill, generating ideas, and mostly left the second one, picking the best idea, almost completely untested. There was also a geography question nobody had settled. Does it matter whether the walk happens outdoors in a park or indoors on a treadmill in a gym? Plenty of research on nature and mental health suggests being outdoors, surrounded by trees and greenery, tends to lower stress more than exercising indoors under fluorescent lights. If that pattern holds for creativity too, a walk through a park should, in theory, beat the exact same walk done on a treadmill at the gym. So a team of researchers finally decided to settle all of this properly, with an actual systematic review and statistical meta-analysis, instead of just collecting anecdotes about famous walkers. They combed through 4 major research databases: PsycInfo, Medline, Scopus, and ProQuest, searching for every study that had ever tested walking specifically against creative thinking. After removing duplicates, they were left with over 5,600 unique studies to screen by hand, just from the title and abstract alone, before even opening the full papers. Only 86 of those made it to a full read-through, and in the end, just 16 published articles containing 23 separate experiments met every requirement to be included. Together, those 23 studies covered 1,036 participants, most of them college students, split between actual randomized experiments, non-randomized experiments, and a couple of purely observational studies. 12 of those studies were proper randomized controlled trials, the gold standard of medical and psychological research, where people are randomly assigned to walk or not, then compared. Here is the headline result. Across every study measuring divergent thinking, the flood of wild new ideas skill, walking produced what statisticians call a large effect, a Cohen's d of 0.93. Translated out of statistics jargon, that means the average person, right after a walk, tends to generate more original ideas than over 80% of people who did not walk at all. And this was not just a fluke driven by weaker, non-randomized studies. When the researchers looked only at the strict randomized controlled trials, the effect was still large, 0.82, almost identical to the overall result. The outdoor versus indoor question turned out to be a lot less dramatic than expected. Outdoor walks scored numerically higher than treadmill walks, but the difference was not statistically significant. In plain terms, a walk on a boring gym treadmill seems to boost creative thinking about as well as a walk through a scenic park does. But then comes the twist. On convergent thinking, the skill of narrowing options down to the single best answer, walking showed basically no effect at all, a tiny, statistically meaningless 0.16. Only 6 of the 23 studies had even tested convergent thinking, so the researchers rated that particular piece of evidence as very low certainty, not a final verdict, just not enough data yet. Put the two findings together, and a walk looks less like a magic creativity switch, and more like a machine that is extremely good at producing raw ideas, but does nothing to help you judge which ones are actually worth keeping. The researchers also checked for publication bias, the risk that only flashy positive results get published while boring negative ones get buried in a drawer somewhere. They found no real evidence of that here, which adds some extra confidence that the large effect on divergent thinking is not just a statistical mirage. The study is not perfect. Most participants were college students, so it is not clear the same effect holds for a 70-year-old or a 10-year-old exactly the same way. A big chunk of the strongest randomized evidence also came from a single research team, so independent labs repeating the experiment would make the case considerably stronger. The authors also could not fully explain why some individual studies found much bigger effects than others, a common headache in this kind of statistical pooling. Still, this is one of the rare corners of health and lifestyle research where the evidence goes beyond simple correlation. thanks to all those randomized experiments. 12 studies actually assigned people at random to walk or sit, then measured what happened next, a real controlled experiment, not just people who happen to walk a lot also happening to be more creative. So the next time you are stuck staring at a blank page or hunting for a good idea and coming up empty, the science now backs up what Einstein and Nietzsche always insisted on. Get up and go for a walk. Just do not expect that same walk to help you decide which idea to actually run with. For that part, you may still need to sit back down. This has been Nexo Science. If you want more real research explained without the hype, stick around for the next one.